Go ahead and call this meeting of May 11, 2020 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order. We will have Commissioner Irving do the invocation and Commissioner Babb lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Public, for which is one nation. Justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Here.
Here.
May not hear you because it's hard to hear you. Commissioner Sharp, can you hear us? Michael. Council chamber is muted on the Zoom call.
We look like we have a solution almost ready. He just has to call into a phone number.
Well, I can attest he's here, so we can move on with the rest of the roll call, get him fixed. Here.
Here.
Here. Thank you. Michael, they are working on it. I'm not sure if you can see what they're doing, but they're working on it. Okay. You guys have got a copy of the minutes. I think we needed to have a modification on those. And we lost you. Okay. You guys all understand that. Basically, it's just going to state that lost connection with her, but all the votes are, and everything's the same on the votes. Is there a motion to approve? Second?
Second.
All right, thank you. We got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Ooh, there's Michael. Awesome. Thank you, Michael. All right, moving on, guys. Apologize now for the lengthy agenda. We may be here a while. All right, 4.1 is a public hearing as well. ZON 20-04 Maricopa Station, a request by the city of Maricopa to amend the city's zoning map to include Maricopa Station overlay for the Maricopa Town site subdivision located within the Heritage District redevelopment area. Discussion and action.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, briefly before I go into these items, which is 4.1 and 4.2, staff is going to do a consolidated presentation for both the rezoning overlay and the proposed text amendment. And we also have our consultant who's been working with us, our consultants with us for the past 6 months, Howard Blackson. So I'll just do a quick intro on the PowerPoint, on the request itself, and then our consultants will then go ahead and give a general synopsis presentation of the standards and actual design guidelines being proposed for the city's Maricopa Station area. I'm going to wait for Abel, if we could pull up the presentation 4.1, which is the part 1. Perfect. So, commissioners, the request here is for text amendment 20-01 and the zoning overlay, which is ZON 20-02, I believe. 20-04, excuse me. Request by the City of Maricopa for the approval of proposed text amendment to the zoning code establishing Article 304 Maricopa Station overlay, and then amending the city's zoning map to include the Maricopa Station overlay as well, also located within the Heritage District redevelopment area. Give you some brief history as well. We came to the commissioners back in October to somewhat initiate this request, to start the looking into finding ways to protect this general area because of the recent infrastructure that has happened within the general area. This triangular area called the Maricopa Townsite Subdivision has been heavily impacted. This gives you an idea of the actual existing mixed-use heritage overlay map in reference to the subject site of the proposed Maricopa Station overlay. And then this just gives you a close-up view of that same area in relation to existing zoning and existing overlay that was established by the city. So this hatched area, triangular area is the proposed Maricopa Station overlay. So the overlay goals. Well, what we started here was to continue the goals and objectives of the city's redevelopment area plan and the general plan. The city's general plan adopted in 2005 first gave the notion of some type of downtown destination area within the city, where we need to develop some type of old town special planning area within this area that needed some need of infrastructure improvement and revitalization. In 2009, the city went ahead and enacted the city's redevelopment area plan that further went through a multifaceted public participation process that designated the areas as the redevelopment area. And within that, it was a more specific idea and planning of what needs to be done to revitalize that area itself, which has now been branded the Heritage District. And one of the biggest goals of that plan from 2009 was that we need to create a character, identity, and downtown destination for the area. Followed by 2015, then in 2011, we then established the Heritage District Design Guidelines, which gave us that architectural enhancement design for any areas within the Old Town area. And then in 2015, with our new zoning code, we then were able to establish actual not above and beyond, but more additional development standards that need to play out within that special area. So this meant more urbanized looking type of development standards, pedestrian oriented type developments, and more walkable in nature types of development standards, which was created in 2015 with a mixed use heritage overlay. Also within the goals, we are responding to the rapid impact of the area, such as, again, the overpass. More recently, the city has been doing some beautification projects in that area, such as the Main Street, which was known as Purging Street. If you drive by there today, you can see some improvements of street improvements that now includes proposed public sidewalks, parallel parking. Eventually, you'll start to see a decorative street light pattern along that corridor, and also some street trees to give it that nice envision of a Main Street Maricopa. This will be a sub-overlay to the existing mixed-use heritage overlay, which was established in 2015. And again, what we're now focusing to this more focused area is enhanced development standards towards the goal of pedestrian-oriented type design. What we realized in 2015 when we established the mixed-use heritage along portions of the John Wayne Parkway corridor, we realized that good examples of the IHOP development or the Culver's development or even the Dutch Bros development, that being that's a highway corridor, we really couldn't develop a design or a pattern that's really pedestrian oriented. Being that the highway is what it is, it's a high capacity roadway that's not going to garner towards pedestrian type of development. So we kind of revisited that we need to maybe have a focused area, and this is a good example of how we can have true pedestrian oriented type developments based on smaller road patterns within the area itself. We also want to continue to allow for continued use of existing property rights within the subject area. Same thing we did in 2015. The overlay is not intended to push any existing residents out of the area. It's merely just to give them additional opportunities of what can be done with the property, and in addition to further protect the area from private development to somewhat implement their own agenda in terms of development standards. The last thing we want to see in that area is some type of use or structure that really doesn't complement our ultimate vision of the city's redevelopment area plan and general plan of creating some type of downtown destination focus on pedestrian orientation. And then lastly, the utilization of specific design guidelines for this area itself. In 2011, we did adopt some design guidelines, but they were really somewhat rough and dirty, just to something to have. This will be more focused for the Maricopa Station overlay that helps complement the standards that we develop in the proposed overlay standard itself. So in your exhibits, you'll see design guidelines that help give good examples of the type of architecture, the type of theming, the type of open space, and the type of building placement and design that should be focused within the Maricopa Station, and not a large design guideline that encompasses a larger area itself, like the mixed-use heritage. As public outreach, again, we initiate this in October 2019 with the commission giving us the blessing to move forward with this text amendment overlay. In order to pass several months, and also in response, and with a little delay to the pandemic and some staff changes, we have been trying to get this thing up and going, and more recently we were able to get this going. But at the same token, for all the beautification projects that's gone more recently, we want to expedite this process as fast as we can, properly through the right channels of the cities. So we did have a Heritage District Advisory initial discussion to give them an idea of what this request is back in June. Started with a 15-day stakeholder review on July 6th, where we got plenty of comments. We sent over to 200 different stakeholders of the city, where the property owner, residents, developers, or anyone that's done business in the city, we gave them a good information of what the proposed request is. On July 9th, we notified within the subject area and outside the subject area within 300 feet of the property, both in English and Spanish, of what the request is. Sign postings on the property at specific locations where prominently most people enter the area itself, and then require legal notice from the Maricopa Monitor newspaper and the Casa Grande Dispatch. Followed by an open house meeting that we just held last Thursday at the Maricopa Unified School District boardroom. Being still respecting the state and local guidelines of what we have in terms of the pandemic, we're able to have a successful meeting via Zoom and also by social distancing by having limited participants within the meeting. That meeting last Thursday went really well. We got nothing but positive vibes and positive responses towards the request itself. In a way, nothing more negative, but more positive about finally seeing something within the area being finally happen in terms of potential development and potential plans for what could it be. And then lastly is just tonight's meeting, which was advertised for a public hearing itself. And just some pictures from the meeting last Thursday. Obviously practicing social distancing as well. With that, I just want to maybe turn it over to, before I get into staff findings and actual staff recommendation, before we go into a public hearing as well, Madam Chair, I'd like to go ahead and have our consultant quickly do a quick presentation on the request and go further in details on just what exactly is being proposed here tonight. With that, Abel, could we go ahead and just switch over to Howard? And then Howard, Abel, I believe we have the presentation, which is part 2. There you go. And then Howard, can you hear me?
I can. I'm not going to say it's the best video I've heard. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. There's no echo. Just to be a touch patient, Artie Vigil from AV3 is having a small technical problems. I gave him the telephone number to call into, and hopefully he'll be able to be on as well if we have any additional questions, and I'll go very quickly. I'm Howard Blackson with Artie from AV3 Design Studio. We work together to do the Maricopa Station code regulations and design guidelines, and we're going to walk through very quickly with questions at the end, correct, Rudy?
Yes, and then Howard, just let me know, I think I have control of the presentation. Oh, I think you're controlling, perfect. Go ahead, Howard.
I hope you said something positive because I couldn't really tell what it was. You feel free to wave your hands or tell me if you can't hear me properly on chat, which I think might be working as well. So this is the location of the station area that we're working on. It was shown just a minute ago, and I'd like to walk fairly quickly through the ordinance and the design standards with the design guidelines as they are laid out in the zoning ordinance themselves, going from the big picture down to the details. The big picture is that in order to have a zoning ordinance that is trying to create a character and an identity for a specific place, the zoning districts are slightly different than conventional zoning because they're place-based. And I'm just going to check in. Is everybody hearing me okay?
Yes, we are. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. The character zones and defined by this are the T5 center, which are intended to be in the center or the core area by the station, and then the T4, which are on the edges next to the existing residential neighborhoods, is supposed to be a little more of a transition from that core to that edge. And then there are design standards and guidelines also for the city's public works and parks and rec department as well. The intent is to be aspirational, to enable mixed-use, walkable, bikeable, transit accessible, parkable, and a drivable town center. The mix of land uses are much less restrictive. We're trying to allow for more opportunity, more things that you can do in the core, because that's what most town centers have, are the most things. What it is intending to move away from are suburban auto-oriented retail uses like drive-throughs or big drive-in theaters, things of that nature. We're looking for a more town center type list of uses, and the uses are very simple. You're either permitted by right, or you have a conditional use for things like a dance hall or something that's more obnoxious really than noxious. And then our things are not allowed. And there are a few things more things are not allowed on the edge next to the existing residential neighborhood, such as a bar and movie theaters and dance halls, but those are allowed in the center and the core area. And the way to be able to control the private development regulation in this character or identity zones is to really control the lot themselves, how the building fronts onto your main street or how the building fronts onto a neighborhood street is different. And then the bulk of the building is in the middle of the lot, and then the service and the primary access to serve these buildings is in the rear of the lot, in the alleys. So our code is done by places, and then even within the lot, 3 different places: the front, the middle, and the rear of the lot. And these codes are broken down into 2 different ways. We help you see the zoning by a building type, if it's a townhouse, if it's a mixed-use, stacked mixed-use building, or if it's just a garden apartment, as well as, hey Artie, as well as if it's just simply on the lot. If you're choosing to do a new building type, then we give you the ability to see all of your regulations in that table as well. A big issue is that parking, we don't have a minimum or a maximum required number of parking stalls per 1,000 square feet. What we say is your parking can be located here on your lot. If you're in the main core area, we'd like the majority of your parking to be either in one of the common parking areas that you can walk to and from, or on the rear of your lot, or on the streetscape. And then as you get to the edge, you can have a greater parking flexibility because it matches better with the residential neighborhood associated with it. And then that front of the building, is it going to be a shopkeeper unit that has an awning on it? Is it going to be a stoop with a townhouse? Is it going to be a gallery and an arcade? We have the flexibility to provide 2 or 3 types of frontages, 2 or 3 types of buildings, 2 or 3 types of layering for each private lot. So it's not one size fits all. You have a range from more urban to more suburban, more residential. Same goes for your streets. The street design guidelines are intended to put the right type of street with the right type of place. A more town center street, Main Street, Mercado Street is different than the edge streets or the collector road that takes you out of the area. And so we have design guidelines for Main Street, which I believe are under construction with these guides right now today. And you'll see that each type of the streets also have different amenities. This is drilling down into greater detail how the lighting, how the signage, how the benches even are related to. Are they in the town center? Are they on the edge? Or are they, off-site? That leads us to signage. The signage is intended to be done for people who are walking through, or coming off the train station, or coming from a parking area, who are walking down the street or driving very slowly. So it's intended to be at the scale of the person, while off-site, the signage is allowed more for high-speed traffic where the cars are going faster and they need to know what's being sold at that area at that higher speed. This is for a lower speed. Our code gives you the ability to have 3 or 4 different signage types per your area that fit best for signaling where your business is. And that goes from awnings and windows and blade signs to murals and yard signs. Same goes for parks. The Parks Department has design guidelines as well. This is the transit station area plaza, which is the heart of where we think the most amount of people visiting and the most amount of people that access outside of the region will come from, as well as the parking areas that are associated with it. And then we have design standards for each one of those. There's not one, but there's 2 or 3. You can have a square or a plaza or a green, depending on where you are and the type of public space that you intend to build. We also have step-by-step project submittal process, which is intended to be very simple. It's mostly by right, administrative, staff approval, unless you choose to do something different, which you're allowed to do, and then you go through the regular process. But these guides are intended to help streamline and make easy to understand this new idea of a character and identity zoning code. And that's where we get into the idea of the design guidelines as an appendix to supplement these design standards that you find in the zoning ordinance. And the character is based upon enabling a clearly southwestern identity with the Sonoran southwestern desert architecture, or American mercantile, Western Americana, or rural agriculture. These types of characters are available to you, and that's what helps create this identity of your historic town center. And so this series of maps are intended to allow the city, people who are going to use the code, people who are thinking of building within the area, to see what the idea is overall. And the idea is that we have civic buildings, we have a museums, we have a veterans center, we have a theater, building arts, we have a train station. And these locations are fairly in place today. And then you have street types, different street types, and different park types, where you have, as shown earlier, the train station, market plaza, but you also can see where these large parking reservoirs are, where you can park once and spend your time going through and spending some money and hanging out in the town center and going to these parking areas that are around the train station and up towards the main highways. And then we have different types of streets that go along with the different types of parking areas, that go along with the different types of public buildings, so that eventually we're able to have our private regulations or private development in these core and edge areas that are adjacent to the existing residential neighborhoods. And this plan is an illustrative to give us the idea of what we're talking about, because everybody that we're talking to here today has a piece of that puzzle, and this is that picture that's on the puzzle box that everybody brings their piece in to make happen, so that we can end up with a station area that we're proud of. And that's my presentation.
Thank you, Howard.
I'll stop sharing my slides.
Thank you, Howard. I'm going to go ahead and Abel, can we just go back to the part one presentation for the request? Perfect. Thank you. Madam Chair, at this time, I think it'll be a good time to maybe, before we go into staff findings or recommendation, we could go into maybe just open up this first item for any type of public hearing for any comments on it, and then we can close it after hearing any comments.
All right, do we have somebody watching YouTube? Oh, okay, we do. So we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing at 6:28. Only the reason I'm saying time is so that we can kind of just keep it open for at least 2 minutes. Sorry, if you can, I don't think the microphone was on to hear that, for everybody to hear that. Can you pull up that map again? I think this map, pull it out of here. Yeah, I think that's the best map.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, as any other comments filter in, I'm going to go ahead and just respond to that. Clarify where this subject, Maricopa Station Overlay, is applicable to. So once again, this proposed Maricopa Station Overlay will only be subject to the area indicated in this map, which is the hatched area, borders by Honeycutt Road to the north, John Wayne Parkway, new overpass corridor or alignment on the west, Mercado Street, which is a new segment roadway, which used to be called Maricopa Cascarine Highway, on the south, and then generally the Plainview area. But literally, you can see the boundary maps of this itself. It does include portions of the Unified School District area location, and also just south of the Mercado Street, which includes the old State Stop building and some vacant portions of the railroad property as well.
Just for clarification purposes, that Mercado Street is actually currently known as Maricopa Casa Grande Highway, but this goes into effect, or is it already known as Mercado?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Commissioners, that segment itself, as it bends over to Plainview, it's already been revised to Mercado Street. It's just that small segment stretch.
Just so that everybody knows that. Nick, there was nobody outside, right? All right, that has been 2 minutes. Is there anything else? Okay, so she got it. Okay. All right, with that being said, I don't think that there's nobody outside that wants to come in. No more comments, so we'll go ahead and close the public hearing.
Perfect. Madam Chair, Commissioners, so at this time, regarding the first item on your agenda, I'd like to go ahead and just Staff findings. As required by Section 509-14 of the City Zoning Code, the Planning and Zoning Commission shall make the following findings for the rezoning request in the recommendation to City Council. The amendment is consistent with the general plan. One, we verified that the proposed overlay zone will adhere to the city's redevelopment area plan of creating character, identity, and a downtown destination for the area. Two, another finding as part of it is any change in the district boundaries is necessary to achieve the balance of land use that is desired by the city, consistent with the general plan to increase the inventory of lands within a given zoning district. Regarding the analysis on that, the zone change amendment will continue to allow the area to its development pattern with additional non-residential development opportunities, also adhering to our ultimate vision of having some type of downtown destination, pedestrian-oriented within the subject area. Three, the amendment will promote the growth of the city in an orderly manner and protect the public health, safety, peace, comfort, and general welfare. The overlay zone will not impact the health, safety, and general welfare of the area and will promote growth in an orderly manner. With that, on that item, and then this is just a recommendation for both items. Staff recommends approval of case text amendment TXT 20-01 and zoning overlay ZON 2004, subject to conditions of approval stated in the staff report and is amended by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Each case will require an independent motion by the commission. So at this time, regarding your first item, staff and the consultant are here to answer any questions. I do want to make mention on a couple things as well. As I did mention, I did give you guys a quick addendum to the request. We did get some last minute feedback over the past couple of days regarding the amendments, so I just want to quickly go over these as best I can. I'll read them out loud, so you should have an addendum in front of you. We do want to make a modification to the conditions within the staff report. Following items are requested to be added as conditions of approval. One, the proposed text amendment to the zoning code formatting heading and subheading structure shall be modified to reflect the current heading and subheading formatting structure of the current city code. Our new city code has a new format structure, and what's being proposed doesn't currently jive with the current structure built into it with the new city code, so we want to give some liberty to staff to reformat that before city council adoption. Two, city staff shall be given the responsibility of any syntax or scrivener or clerical errors found within the document, subject to the following but not limited to others found within the document as well. So I've listed a couple in here. I'm going to just read them out loud for the record. Section 304.01F, page 2, is we want to go ahead and delete the word that. Section 304.06, subsection E, page 4, replace so that with and with allowing, and replace may with, and to, and replace recreate with play. Section 304.8, subsection B, page 7, first line reads as CD or T4. We just want to add or after T4 and between T4 and T5. Section 304.10, subsection F1, page 8, we want to go ahead and delete R. And again, these are just more grammatical little typographic errors. Section 304.10, subsection F4, page 9, there's a statement in there about all openings. We just want to add all openings as plural. Section 304.11, page 14, we had a little typo error, it missed uses within that line item. Section 304.11, page 14, numbers. We want to designate design, delete the D at the end, just a little typo on that one. Page 16, there's a section which I believe it should be read as 304. Section 304, there's a statement about how it's oriented. We want to make the modification to oriented versus orientation. Towards the street currently says orientation. Section 304.11C, page 17, delete the first word of that. Section 304.11G, page 18, delete the last sentence and replace with the following: outdoor living areas include balconies, decks, common open space areas, and or rooftop open spaces, but not limited to. Section 304.1.12, subsection E, page 20, one blaze sign, table 30407 is permitted, currently says R. Section 304.12C, page 20, delete that and replace with 2. Section 304.1.12, subsection G, page 20, delete that and replace with 2. Section 304.14A1C, I2, page 26, and must, just add must to that statement. Section 304.15, page 28, duplex, a building with two side-by-side units on a lot, and we're adding with a shared wall of the building. 304.15, page 31, public furniture, delete equipment and replace with items. And then section 304.15, page 31, rear alley, delete should and replace with shall. Section 304.15, page 32, regulating plan, delete the following definition, replace with the following: a map or set of maps showing the sub-districts, thoroughfares, and blocks length subject to regulations under the Maricopa Station Overlay District. Almost there. Section 304.15, page 31, row houses, delete that, should, and replace with sharing. Section 304.15, page 31, sidewalk signs, delete that is, and to attract, delete that is, and also delete to attract pedestrian. Section 304.15, page 33, triplex, a building with three side-by-side units on lots, and then adding with a shared wall on the building. Madam Chair, Commissioners, I appreciate you just mentioning, just going over those last-minute syntax errors. We just want to make mentions for the record itself. Commissioners, I'll be more than happy to answer questions, and our consultants as well, if there's any.
Sorry for keeping you busy. Okay, let's start one at a time, but let's start with Commissioner Sharp, who's online. Probably be easier. Commissioner Sharp, you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. They've all been answered by the presentation. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Commissioner Babb.
Yes, thank you. I did have a question. For public knowledge, does Maricopa have any other overlay zones like this in the city today?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Babb, yes, we do. So in 2015, the city's new zoning code that we adopted created two overlay standards, one called a mixed-use heritage and the other called a transportation corridor overlay. The transportation corridor overlay was designated for major highways of the city, such as 347 and Maricopa Cascade Highway, and the mixed-use heritage was for a portion of the city's redevelopment area.
Okay, thank
So
you.
this will be our third overlay established.
Okay, this will be the third one?
Yes.
Okay. And what makes this one, it's different than the others because this one sits inside the Heritage District. And it looks like it's more stringent than the Heritage District's overlay zoning to push more towards pedestrian than vehicle traffic and other types of businesses and uses. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Babb, that is correct. I think what we've learned from the last overlays that we established for the mixed-use heritage, a portion of the redevelopment area, is that we do have areas that significantly impacted by the 347 or Maricopa Cascade Highway. And this subject site is probably better oriented to have that type of overlay standards that has a more pedestrian type of experience than any other areas of the city. So this is a little bit, setting the bar a little bit higher than what we did in 5 years ago, but it makes more sense in terms of the context of the general area versus the other areas.
Okay. And also, just for clarification, all current property owners are grandfathered into the current one the current overlay district. Is that correct?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Commissioner Babb, that is correct. This doesn't change any of the existing or permitted uses or the rights of existing homeowners in the area. This will only be applicable to any new construction or general major expansion to existing properties. If a property owner wants to add some expansion to it, we did build in some caveats and some relief valves where they could still continue to expand, but with the notion of still adhering to the general design guidelines established within what's being proposed.
Okay. Thank you. I'm good.
Commissioner Frank?
No, I don't have any comments or questions on this other than to say it looks like it's a well-done, comprehensive and to the overlay to the zoning there, so hope it develops as you envision.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Irving?
those people who do want to stay, that, you know, there might be some incentive to help them blend in. Just curious.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Irving, I think what we're seeing now, and we somewhat did this back in after the RDA plan, the redevelopment area plan 2009, that we did establish some facade improvement programming for existing residential and commercial. And we realized it really wasn't going as good traction. We didn't have good participation. And I think we realized that we have to find other mechanisms to have those type of programs. So we now established what we have in our department, a neighborhood services division. You haven't met this person, but if you know her, name is Judy Ramos, and she is an active, dedicated person towards finding ways to get some more resources within that area. Before, we didn't have a dedicated position for areas like this, but now we do. And we're looking at ways to provide some type of funding or incentive programs for the subject area. I think in the near future, you'll probably see some more programming within the area to help still meet these visions and goals of what's being established today.
Great. Commissioner Yocum.
Yes. On 30410G parking, you and I had discussed this before, Rudy, when we had our one-on-one. And that is, I think we're going to have to monitor applications when they come in. If someone has some type of a facility or activity they want to bring in, which is going to require an extraordinary number of parking spaces, we're going to have to be careful with that. Even though parking spaces are not allocated per property or use, if we only have so many parking spaces and somebody wants to bring a theater in there, which is going to require, let's say, 400 parking spaces, we have to be aware that we may not have them. Aggregate.
Yeah. Now, Madam Chair, Commissioner, I think that's something, we've talked about that offline. I think that's something maybe to mention as part of the section of section 304.10G, is that the ideas of not having a minimal parking area, but at the same token, we can make an amendment to, when we present it to council, to give the notion that doesn't limit development or property to actually have parking within the area, their own parking requirements itself. So it doesn't limit to having some type of parking on site. I think it will be receptive to that type of amendment.
Also, on Part E, building height, no, we don't see any building height requirement or guideline, but we discussed how any kind of equipment on top of a building, such as air conditioning equipment or elevator shaft equipment, would affect the height of the building that we keep.
Madam Chair, Commissioner, I think also a good amendment to add as a condition, as part of this, is to also verify in terms of height definitions that it does meet top of structure, and verify that it's probably defined in the current code, if not already within the overlay itself, but we can add that as a condition when we present it.
Finally, on table 304.02B, we're talking residential, the number of dwellings on each lot is limited to an average size of 1,000 square feet per each unit. And you and I had discussed that, okay, let's say we have 6 units and one is 4,000 square feet and the others are 500. Is that the kind of mix that we would allow, considering that that is our restriction or our guideline?
Commissioner, can you repeat that section again?
Okay, it's table 304.02B. Probably on about page 5. My pages aren't numbered here.
Got it. And repeat the comment
Okay,
regarding
I was looking
residential.
at the guidelines for T4 and T5. Under residential, the number of dwellings on each lot is limited to an average size of 1,000 square feet per each unit. And what my question is, if we had, let's say, a 5,000 square feet we could divvy up, and we had 3,000 of that dedicated to one use, and the other 2,000 was divided into 500 square feet per unit usage. Is that something that we would allow, or?
Madam Chair,
I'm
Commissioner.
making an extreme example just to make the example.
Sure. Madam Chair, Commissioner Yocum, I think it's something that we can note as also a condition to see if, because right now it's just a general description of the building intensity, so I don't think it hurts to add some type of language in there of the type of options available. It doesn't have to be on average 1,000 square feet per unit, but it gives at least an example. It could be such and such, 5,000 square foot lots.
Thank you.
Mr. Hopkins?
No questions.
Hey, I got a couple. We still have our consultant online, right?
Yes, we do. Howard?
Okay,
I'm here, yeah.
great, thank you. A couple things that I had talked to Rudy offline about was, and it was kind of brought that maybe you might be able to help us address, how would we address, and I talking with our attorney the same way, building under the building types for the zero lot line maintenance easements. Do you have any other overlays that you've done wordings for to allow the person to be able to maintain the building through the easement of that next lot?
No, this is the first I've ever heard of this, so.
Okay, well, let me give you the scenario that I presented to everybody earlier. So if you've got two structures, one of them is sitting on the zero lot line and they need to, let's say, paint the building, how are they going to be able to get onto that other property if there's no easement for maintenance only? That's the question.
The zero lot lines are intended to have buildings be placed directly attached to each other with the firewall, so the zero lot line is not intended to have a side yard space.
Correct, but if you, speaking of side yard, that's a perfect example. So if you look in the table section 304.04C, under the different building types, you'll see that the side yards, the building has been planted right on the zero lot line. So we need to have some sort of wording in there, but I think he's already answered the question that I think that it's going to need to come from us because he hasn't had anything where we put some sort of wording in there that allows for maintenance easement for this type of situation. Because those properties are going to have to be maintained at some point or another, and we're going to need to allow the homeowner without having to get into a legal argument with the neighbor to be able to maintain their property building.
And I'm not sure that this issue isn't in the other part of a zoning ordinance because this seems to be a very specific maintenance sort of issue until another building is built, and it's an easement issue. And so that's part of the reason why we have the language where if it's not mentioned in this code, it's governed by another part of the section. So we can be more explicit with it.
I don't think that there's anything listed anywhere about zero lot lines. I think this is the first time we're seeing zero lot lines.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Commissioner, the only thing I can recommend at this time is to, maybe as a condition of approval, is to see if we can investigate if there's one existing within our current subdivision. We have some easement standards within the city's code, also within our design standards manual in terms of easements planning, and then we can also make mention, if it's nothing related, but we can add a caveat within the zero lot line type standards, if as applicable, some type of maintenance easement may be necessary from some type time to time.
Okay, because I think legal's agreeing with us on this one. I think we do need to put some caveat in there for, the out instead of
On a
having-
case-by-case basis type of
exactly,
situation.
Because the only way a homeowner or shop owner is going to be able to maintain the building if there is an argument between the two is some legal means.
Yeah.
That could end up being quite costly. The other thing that I was looking at is under 304.07 C2, where it talks about the resident being a full or part-time resident, or the homeowner being a full or part-time. I think we were wanting to remove the part-time, the full-time and leaving it just resident.
The fried eggs.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Commissioners, I think that's a good suggestion. We talked about this. So the whole idea of this section is to give opportunities for these residents to have a home occupation type business, but go on the different route. That's not really, they don't have to be a full-time resident within the property. I think we could strictly make the condition that we can simply remove that they don't be resident at the property at all to utilize the building, the home as an actual business. So we can make that change as
that
part
what
of
you
the
wanted?
condition.
Okay.
Well, then you need to take them out of the toaster.
Toasting what?
Just quickly for the participants on Zoom, can you please just mute except for Howard?
Right? Because somebody's making us hungry talking about toasting something. All right, so the next one that I have is 304.12 for signage. And maybe our consultant can help on this one as well. We talk about the window signs. On all of the other signage, there is a limitation of the size of the signage, but under the window signs, under I, there is no size restriction, which means that somebody can put, because the only restriction is to be able to see in, which means you can cover that entire window with something, as long as you can see.
Yeah. That's a mistake. We'll fix that.
Great.
And then, Madam Chair, Commissioners, we have general standards already built in within the current code, the current sign code. We could either mirror it or just refer to that within the city's current sign code itself.
Okay, and then 304.14, under the review of the plans, under the exception, I was looking under section B to apply for an exception. I'm trying to give us as a city a relief valve. I think there should be something in there that states something to the effect of other items necessary or remove or whatever, to give you guys the ability to have that caveat instead of just blanketing this.
Madam Chair, Commissioner, I think that's a good suggestion to add in there as for any other unknown circumstances that we can't really predict at this time, but that's a good thing to add in there as a type of catch-all.
Okay, and then under the definitions, I think we need to put some sort of definition for, and Commissioner Yoakum's point was also mirrored in this area as well, where he was talking about the parking. I think we need to put something about parking lots.
Yeah, we noticed as well, Madam Chair and Commissioners, that we have definitions of parking structure, but can easily be confused with general parking facilities itself. So if it's not already embedded in our current zoning code, we want to definitely define parking lot or parking area to differentiate between a parking structure and a parking area itself.
And then one of the other things that I was looking at, and I didn't see it listed in the addendum, was under public furniture, where you did change it from equipment to items. So now it would read, items provided by City of Maricopa for the comfort or convenience of pedestrians. I'm really thinking, unless somebody can give me a reason why, I think we need to remove for the comfort or convenience of pedestrians. I think that puts us way too much out there, because if somebody doesn't like the comfort of a concrete bench, then they're going to be, well, that's not convenient and that's not comfortable. I think if we remove that, and I think our attorney's shaking his head, yes, he agrees.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Commissioner, so the definition will simply read items provided by the City of Maricopa, and that's it for
May I
that
make a
definition.
suggestion? Maybe for public use. Items
That's
provided
what
by
it
the
is,
city
because
of
it's public furniture.
For public use, right. Instead of for the comfort and of citizens, maybe just for public use.
Right, well, it's listed, the topic is in definition where it says public furniture. But
And
you're
then
saying-
say items are provided by the city of Maricopa for public use.
Yeah, I think adding public use maybe a little bit more,
That's
it's
fine.
still general, but not specific. Items
As long as we
provided
take comfort and convenience.
by the City of
out.
Maricopa for public use, I think it's a good suggestion.
Yeah. And then speaking of that, I'm not sure whether or not this would be the appropriate time, and probably not, considering this is just an overlay, but there's a couple things that I had a question on in the sense of the items that are going to be placed. Are we concerned at this point about the furniture that's showing in the design? Are these just examples, so to speak? Because I'm concerned about the wooden bench. Howard?
Thank you. Yeah, the issue of photographs in ordinances are tricky. because you could have a photograph of something that's illegal. This is why these are an appendix in a design guideline format, and that when you look at the ordinance itself that's being adopted into the zoning, it has very general graphics as opposed to these more specific that are in the design guidelines. So the general graphics are the standards. The others are guides.
Okay, I was just concerned.
At least that was our intention. Yeah.
Okay, I was just concerned about a wooden bench, because that's gonna lead to a lot of maintenance for us. But we're not gonna worry about it. How about my other question?
We can change that picture.
Okay. The other question that I had was in this, and maybe again, this is not the right time and place to talk about it, but in the list of areas of what was going to be available, I only saw one public restroom building. I'm thinking, and the worst part about it, it was located at the very top up by Honeycutt instead of, at least in the middle. I mean, there's no other restrooms located. Is that something that would be addressed later, or is that now?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, that's very later down the road. Like Howard mentioned, these are just illustrations, visionary, illustrative type of concepts. As the city goes into the world of capital projects within the area, that's a good suggestion to include, but this time it's not the appropriate time for that.
Okay, and then the idea of the drainage would also be addressed at the later time as well, correct? Okay. All right, sorry for items, but that's all I got. So with that being said, Commissioner Yocum?
Just one more, 30410, lot occupation, 2 buildings may be built. They talk about an accessory building. Do we have a definition for accessory building?
Yes, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Commissioner Yocum, we'll double check. We should have already a built-in definition for accessory buildings or structures in nature. If it's not already listed, we'll go ahead and make that clarified and defined as part of this code update.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Babb?
Yeah, on the presentation, there was the Maricopa Park that was shown. Is there a reason why that's not included in this overlay district?
Abel, can I get the Part 2 presentation, Howard's presentation, back on? Thank you. Madam Chair, Commissioner Babb,
Maricopa Park looks like it's outside of the,
to
the left of the,
Number 6?
yeah, I see it.
Talk about number 6?
yeah, number 6.
Yeah.
That's
Madam Chair, Commissioner, so yeah, we did not include that as part of this overlay. Again, this is just more illustration purposes for what general context of what that could possibly be. We were really merely focused by the island of what the infrastructure of the overpass really created. I think at a later time, with this overlay, we may look into additional sub-overlays, such as everything west of the new overpass area, potentially in the future, as that's a whole different area in terms of the connectivity. But in general, we're speaking of this area, someone have some connection component to that western portion as well.
Right, so it's not something that we'd want to target at this time to include in the overlay.
In terms of the development pattern, we're more focused on the existing subdivision itself. On that portion, that's still, that large retention area largely is zoned by ADOT, and there's some future considerations in the future for some type of public park design in the future. But we want to just focus on the existing built environment in there.
Okay.
That will still come into play it's still part of the Heritage District, so that whole overlay for the Heritage District will play on that as well.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
All right, any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion with all the 1.5 million addendums.
So just to clarify, so the first item is the rezoning overlay. And then, I'm sorry, one more time, Mabel, if we could just get part 1 presentation so we have just the recommendation from staff. Part There you go. Perfect. Thank you. So again, we're going to do this by separate motions on each one independently. So again, the staff recommends approval of case text amendment TXC 2001 and zoning overlay 2004, subject to conditions of approval stated in the staff report as amended by the Planning and Zoning Commission and with the stated amendments that was mentioned for the record during this time.
Are you wanting separate motions?
The first one will be just a zoning overlay, which is your item with 4.1, so we'll make an action on that one. And then we'll go into the next item, which is for the text amendment, item 4.2, TXC 20-01.
So for clarification purposes, guys, we are doing 4.1 separately than 4.2. Okay.
I'd like to move that we approve 4.1 ZON 20-04.
Second it.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So passed. And then now we're going to look at 4.2. Require me to read that? He's shaking his head, yeah. All right, and we will have to open the public hearing as well, correct? Okay.
Yes.
So we're going to go ahead and, 4.2, public hearing, text amendment, TAX 20-01, Maricopa Station, a request by the City of Maricopa for review and approval for a proposed text amendment to the City of Maricopa zoning code, establish Article 304, Maricopa Station, MS overlay for the Maricopa Town Site subdivision located within the Heritage District redevelopment area, discussion and action. And for clarification, it is 7:04, so we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing for 2 minutes. On YouTube for us, I would greatly appreciate it.
I just want to make a quick clarification. So just, I kind of jumped the gun on the previous, what I mentioned. Just follow suit with the same amendments I'll describe in the previous agenda item as 4.1 in terms of the list of conditions that and the amendments we made on the record to also apply for this item as well.
I will motion to approve item 4.2 TXT 2001 with prior discussed amendments and conditions.
Second it.
Aye.
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 4.3, public hearing, minor general plan amendment, GPA 20-02, Ojon Terrace Apartments, a request by Mike Arch, on behalf of Crystal and Kent Ojon to amend the general plan future land use map of approximately 1.69 acres, a portion of Pinal County parcel number 510-71-018A from existing employment E to high-density residential HRD located south of Honeycutt Road and east of Porter Road. Discussion and action.
Thank you, Commissioner, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. Thank you so much. My name is Ryan Wozniak. For the record, I will be presenting this item 4.3, 4.4, and 4.5 all together. And both 4.3 and 4.4 to require public hearings as they are both general plan amendments and rezones. So, Abel, if you could, please bring up staff presentation for the Ojon Terrace Apartments. Talking to the guys in the back.
Ryan.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sorry, we were chit-chatting. Go ahead.
All right, so back in business. Okay, so we have general plan amendment, minor general plan amendment. We have a rezone, and we have a development review permit, the major development review permit, all being reviewed for this request. It is a request by Leslie Parch, the architect, and on behalf of Kent and Crystal Ojon, but also joining their team is Anna Marie, who's a builder and representative who you will hear from tonight as well. Subject site is not quite 1.7 acres, and it is a portion of a former parcel that has been lot divided. It just hasn't been given a new parcel number yet, but it is lot 2 of the overall parcel number there. The general plan amendment is a request to look at the future land use map from the existing employment to the proposed high-density residential. And then the rezone request is to look at the existing general business, CB2, and consider the proposed high-density residential, RH. So just an overview over the entitlement process, because these are 3 cases that all go together. How do they all mesh together? For everybody's benefits, the first part is the general plan. The second part is the rezone. The zone map amendment has to comply with the general plan. And then the development review permit then looks back to the zoning designation to look at the development standards. So they kind of layer in onto each other. And it's not until you get through these part 1, 2, and 3 of the zoning permit that an applicant can then pursue a building permit. So parts 1, 2, and 3, this is mayor, council authority that have the final say. Part 3, the development review permit, stops with council, but then ultimately is dependent on parts 1 and 2 being passed by council. And part 4 is all administrative review by staff, building safety, fire, engineering, planning, all making sure that the construction permits are to the conceptual plans that you see before you today. So back into the site info, you heard the acreage, you've heard the parcel number. The site address is not quite yet applied, but it is near the southeast corner of Porter Road and Honeycutt Road. It's really nestled in to the Sequoia Pathway. You'll see a site plan here, or a site location map here soon. Again, the existing general plan is employment. The proposed general plan land use is high-density residential. Existing zoning is general business. Proposed zoning is high-density residential. The overlay zoning, there is none. And there's the total dwelling units on this site is 27. So it's a relatively small project for apartment complexes as far as apartments go. And then that comes to a proposed density of 12 or 16 dwelling units per acre based on the 1.69 acres. And the allowed density, for RH, sorry, that's an error to this slide, should be RH, high density residential, not the multi-unit residential. Should read then 20 dwelling units per acre. So the parking required and the parking provided on site, there's 50 parking spaces required and 55 parking spaces provided. That does meet code standards, is not more than 10% of the the permitted or required parking to not exceed that 10% max. Okay, so this location, now you see on the aerial, is nestled in right there at the Sequoia Pathway, just west of its main building, just east of Porter Road, and a little ways south of Honeycutt Road. The proposed general plan future land use map would look like that if approved. So you see that the high density residential is surrounded by employment, but the context is very much school, semi-public, and preschool immediately to the south, with a lot of the area zoned for commercial. We'll see if the future land use map of employment allowing zone changes to the parcels ever take effect, but the existing zoning you'll see in a few slides. So minor general plan amendment, GPA 20-02 with the existing employment, lots of broad opportunities for employment uses, industrial uses, and things of that nature. But given that this is having the context that it is in and with the school that it is in, there's potential that the general plan future land use map could have used more attention at the time of adoption than what it actually received. So overall, the mix of uses in the area for the proposed high-density residential seems to be a good fit. So then the proposed zoning 2002 would look like this if approved. So you see that there's CB2 context all the way around the school site, the daycare site, and then the expected commercial uses in and around the site to the future. That's all existing zoning. And you have the new commercial, or Circle K, at Porter Road and Honeycutt Road. So zoning map ZON, I'm sorry, I did not update that. Should be 2001. The existing general business CB2 is being proposed to be high-density residential RH. That does allow for densities of 12 to 20 units per net acre. The density range allows for a lot of things, and highlighted here in blue, the multi-unit buildings developed at a scale and the form appropriate to its neighboring context, adjacent single-unit residential uses and forms. This talks about how it mixes well with daycare centers, which there is one, and public or semi-public facilities around it. The school kind of counts as that. So you see some supportive language right there in the definition of its intentionality. The public comment period, the applicant has complied with section 50206 with regards to public outreach and having a neighborhood meeting even under these times with a virtual neighborhood meeting. However, nobody did attend that neighborhood meeting, but the sign was posted and the notification letters went out and all the newspaper notifications went out as well. So we have all that documented in citizen participation report. Development Review Permit, DRP 2007. The existing land is vacant, that 1.69 acre parcel. The proposed 27 dwelling units across that lot would be dispersed amongst 4 apartment buildings developed in 2 phases, and all those apartments are slated to be 1 and 2 bedroom units. So this is a kind of a tucked away corner of a vacant parcel. The appropriate, that acreage is not accurate, I apologize. The context is semi-public and planned commercial sites around it. And this approval does come with a fair amount of site improvements that will be outlined here in these exhibits. You see that this is a landscape plan that illustrates phasing 1, but it also shows the building footprints and context to the landscaping plan as well. You'll see that the primary access is using the existing driveway that is used by the daycare, and then that drive headed south off of Porter Road does access the daycare. This would build off of that access and head then providing east-west access, primary access to the site. And in phase 1, you would see that the circulation has all been met and all the emergency access needs have been met through pavement and emergency access routes built to the standards required by the fire department. The first phase is those 2 buildings. One building has 9 units. The second building has 5 units. In phase 2, I've illustrated basically a phase line there in red to help differentiate the full site improvements that are brought in with those 2 additional buildings in phase 2. One building has 4 units. The second building has, again, 9 units. Total 27 units. And then all the additional parking and covered parking that come along with it, and landscaping. Okay, just so that everybody kind of understands the circulation patterns on site. Something happened to one of my purple lines. There's a fair amount of sidewalk connectivity. You see a gap actually between the purple line closer to Porter Road and site. That's not intentional. There should be a line there, actually. So there's pedestrian circulation. Oh, there it is. There's pedestrian circulation met throughout the site, accessing Porter Road, accessing future commercial, accessing the daycare. You have vehicle circulation eased, or if anything, a signal to those entering into the site from Porter Road, met by a landscape island, kind of indicating, hey, you're kind of entering a different context here. You're not entering the daycare. This is somebody's home. So we try to soften the entryway with the landscape island, and a fair amount of landscaping actually off-site there along the entryway. You have full movement in and out of the site, and there's an additional stop sign that helps protect those entering into this potential conflict zone at the private driveways. This has all been studied by traffic engineers and approved through a traffic impact statement by the city's engineering department. I think I skipped over the emergency access gate there too at the north side. I don't know why it's skipping over there so fast. Anyway, technical difficulties, I apologize. So the elevations you see are offering a mix of gray tones through much of the facade of the building. I believe that the applicants are still negotiating with the architect as to what's feasible for the elevation treatment. I will let the applicant actually clarify the latest and greatest as to what they're committing to for the facade treatments, but it is my understanding that there's more stone veneer that's being requested in place of the metal facades that you see above the door. And we are definitely in favor of that, helping softening the image, softening the facades, giving it a little bit more residential character. But the mix of the blue, teal metals and the stuccos and the varying roof lines, the fact that the massing of the building goes from a 2-story to a 1-story, making a nice transition towards the edges of the development, are all features that staff applaud Backing up one slide here, I also want to highlight that a key feature to what's helping bring this site plan into conformance is the availability of private outdoor space for every unit. So every unit has provided its own private outdoor space, which exceeds the code requirements for the private space and actually credits towards public space. But there is public space, public gathering, picnic space that is planned for the very southeast portion of the site, right outside of Building B, kind of near that landscape notch that comes into the parking lot there. So easily accessible by the community and well landscaped around there as well. Here's an image, a still image from a there's been a short animation that's been provided by the applicant for your pleasure in just a moment's time when the applicant presents this item. But it gives you a good sense of the colors and the massing and the sense of place that the amount of site developments comes together to look like. So staff analysis, as far as the minor general plan amendment go, GP 20-02, we see that it meets goals for conflict resolutions between land uses, assuring the development of a diverse housing stock that's very important to the city, both in type and density. Creating a safe and functional pedestrian way and bicycle ways as alternate modes for travel throughout the city. And then the housing needs and assessment and housing plan obviously highlight the need for diversifying the housing stock. So staff finds these all to be favorable conditions with the proposed general plan amendment. And then moving into the more detailed zoning code analysis, the amendment would then be consistent with the general plan if the general plan was approved. Any change in district boundaries would be necessary to help meet the goals of the general plan, so providing this zoning district would help meet those goals. And then the amendment will promote growth in the city in an orderly manner. Again, with its surrounding context, this seems like a good use, a good placement for the intensive high-density residential. Another clarification about the residential designation that was provided. The RH designation here is really just a matter of dwelling units per acre. Every other aspect of the development could be met in the RM category. It is solely the dwelling units per acre that is pushed this application into the RH designation rather than the RM, the lesser dense classification. But in terms of building massing and parking and site improvement requirements, all that could be done under RM. So it could just be a need for staff to sharpen our pencils and look at those dwelling numbers in our zoning code and come back to the commission and the council with potential text amendments. But just want to give you a little bit of backstory on why this designation. So, and then the development review permit, we find that this proposal is meeting all these required findings as explicitly stated in the code. So, being that this is a general plan amendment and a rezone, public hearings are required. So I would take this time to open up the public hearing if it suits the chair.
Do we want to have the applicant give a presentation if they want before the public hearing? That way the public, we don't have to go back twice.
We can do that. Would you like to pull up the video, Abel?
Good evening, folks. My name is Annie. I have the pleasure to work with Kent and Crystal Ojan for their development of the Ojan Terrace Apartments. Thank you, Commission members, for the opportunity to provide comments on the Ojan Terrace Apartments. The ability to participate in the historical growth of a city like Maricopa is certainly ours being Mr. and Mrs. Ojan as investors and developers in their community. HP Development, represented by Mr. Robert Vanisdale, and the team of local tradespeople being assembled for the development, as in utilizing local trades. Economic development is a very, very important component of this project for Kent and Crystal. Rare are the opportunities to create communities as opposed to moving in and rehabilitating an existing community in hopes of a successful rebirth. Maricopa is very rare in this country to be somewhat of a virgin community, and working with the city planning folks, Ryan, Adam, Mr. Lopez, the Ojans have dug deep, as you see on your screens and on the screen above. This is a long-standing, well-thought-through project that we are embarking on to develop with them. The general plan for the city of Maricopa, issued in 2016, cites various essential components for the development of Maricopa that the Ojans took to heart and consideration. And of course, it's not my intention to educate you on your own general plan, but more so to share with you how Kent and Crystal have really acknowledged what's within your plan for the development of housing units, apartment units, having worked intimately with the city planning department to assure that what they have designed as their first 4 buildings will appease you folks who are the guardians for Maricopa development at this time. Emphasis in the general plan with respect to the Ojan Terrace apartments is encouragement of mixed use. The 7-acre ranches area, or 7 ranches area, being designated to be sure to have a balanced development of both commercial and residential. Thus, you have Circle K out on the far corner. You have the school that exists and is currently under expansion directly adjacent to the Ojan property. Open lands being developed to acknowledge the residential growth that is so critically needed here. The general plan having been issued in 2016, the planning department helped Kent and Crystal be aware of the density levels that are cited in the general plan, and that the layout of these first 4 structures, while it meets the threshold of high density, it certainly doesn't exceed the minimum requirement as a high density, and therefore is not impactful on the surrounding existing and future development. The project does not exceed height guidelines. It's well within the height guidelines. The project provides for an appealing balance of single and 2-story components for the project. There's depth to these buildings. It was very important for Kent and Crystal not to design what other cities have made mistakes in allowing rectangular stucco boxes to be built that were not appealing to the community. It doesn't give a good feeling when you drive in your apartment after working all day in whatever profession you're in to a rectangular stucco box with nothing that resonates. You've ended your day and come home. Each unit offers a private or semi-private outdoor space as well. The Ojans have also embarked additionally to use a building system that I'm proud to also reintroduce to the city. It was introduced last year, July, to building and safety and a few of the engineers. This system, for 47 years, used on every continent in the world, was designed originally in California. There are more than 100,000 structures worldwide. It provides unparalleled energy conservation. It is termite resistant. There is 0 food value for termites. It is fire resistant. It is one of the only constructed homes in the Woolsey Fire of Malibu, California, November 2018, that survived with more than 60 structures burnt to the ground around it. It is comprised of 100% recycled steel wire, so it will meet and exceed many of the LEED guidelines that I know every city is proud to to garnish that credential. With that said, it was very important for the Ojans to work towards a community that's been designed with the vibe of home, not just one more conventional apartment complex of how many units can we cram in there? How much money can we reap as the landlords? Instead, they took a mission of designing home before profit. We look forward to your shared optimism and support for the Ojan Terrace Apartments. We look forward to a green light to advance the project with the Ojans. And at this time, I'd like to ask Crystal Ojan, on behalf of her and her husband, to be able to say a few words about their own project. Thank you.
Hi, we won't take much of your time. We just wanted to say thanks for the opportunity for allowing us to present. My husband's 33 years retired veteran, 3 branches, and we've made Maricopa our home. So our objective is to develop projects that make Maricopa proud. And thank you so much for hearing us out today. Thank you. Do you want to say anything?
No. Okay. Thank you. I'm thinking that it might be best if we open up the commission to ask questions in the public hearing. That way, we might answer some of the public questions.
Follow your lead.
Wouldn't it, if you get the questions, if you do the public hearing, you might feed some questions in, and then you can discuss them after the public hearing. That makes sense.
Public hearing first.
It's however you want to do it.
All right, let's go ahead and do the public hearing first.
Okay.
It is 7:33, so
So for clarification, is this opening up a public hearing that will serve both 4.3 and 4.4, or do we have to hold them separately?
They're separate, so you're having the public hearing for 4.3.
Okay.
oh yeah, we have to do them separately. Sorry. 4.3 public hearing for the minor general plan amendment, starting at 7:33. I could not understand what you're saying. Could you either take your mask off or move closer?
Sorry. Comment from Barb Passler on YouTube. She says, I'm against any more multi-use housing until we see how the others work out.
That would be our 2 minutes. Any more comments? Plan?
Yes, one more from Barb Passler again. With that said, we need more businesses and better roads in and out of the city before we start adding more people. It's really from Barb Passler.
I disagree with businesses coming. Anybody outside? We're good? All right, I guess we'll go, no, anything else? One more time. That's it? All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing.
Okay. So with that, the public hearing would be closed, and staff does, as the analysis indicates, if I could get that presentation back up, you will see that staff makes a positive recommendation for item 4.3, the minor general plan amendment 20-02.
Okay, we'll kind of do the same pattern. We'll go out to Commissioner Sharp first.
I do not have any questions. It looks like a really interesting project, and I'm really interested to see how it takes shape.
All right, thank you. We'll start on this side this time. Commissioner Hopkins, anything? Mic's not on.
No questions.
Yeah. Commissioner Yocum.
Just an interesting comment, presentations. Parks, recreation, and open space are located within walking distance of the apartment project. They're talking about Cano Park, which is across the street, but it's about, and I'm just wondering, Porter is a pretty busy street, and do we want a whole lot of children going over there to play every day? What provision might be made with this project to help children to recreate?
Okay. Thank you for that comment, Chair, Commissioner Yocum. So the broader context of bringing in Pecana Park's proximity to the site was just part of a broader analysis as to the context for opportunities to recreate and have access to open space. But the site itself is meeting all of its open space requirements per code. But with that said, Porter Road is a busy road. You will see that if it hasn't already, it is planned to be, the speed limit has changed or will change to 35 miles per hour on Porter Road. This whole corridor, if you notice, has been very attractive to educators, so school sites, right? And so that has actually inspired the city to reach out to do work in doing safe routes to school studies, and Porter Road has been one of those roads that have been identified for additional safe crossings and any sort of traffic calming or enforcements or education or special programs to ensure that circulation across Porter Road is safer and is met, helps meet that public safety, safe street requirement.
And I know in that general area, we have, last count, I think 6 charter schools down there, so you're right. The area is certainly commensurate with the youthful population. Thank you.
Thank you.
To piggyback off of that, I think there already is a light there for crosswalk only right now that they can use to cross. A light there for crosswalk.
A little further south.
Irving.
Yeah, I have a number of questions, not to the Ojans, because I think it's a wonderful project. I've voiced my concern before about that area, and it is just almost comical to me, an area that is extremely filled in with kids. 7 schools, 6,000 kids, and we are going to make it a high-density area. Whatever. So I guess my concern is there have already been a couple of accidents in that same driveway that you're talking about pulling into getting to an apartment. So even though I'm a supporter of what they do, I really think by number 3, to have this a safe, peaceful area, we need to really, as a city, look at the flow. You are basically having people drive into an apartment complex through a preschool. And then you're having them leave and they can turn left on that, which they can't do at the public school. So I just think it's a dangerous thing to create an apartment complex in that spot and drive through a preschool where there's already been accidents. I don't know the solution for it. I'll still support it, but it's just a dangerous accident waiting to happen with units where you're putting them with preschool kids, middle school kids, a high school that's expanding. I don't know. It's again, like I said, I understand it's got nothing to do with the developers, but I just really worry about what we're committing there in the term of mixed use, and then actually call it high density, which is not what that area needs.
Commissioner Frank?
Yeah, I would have to agree with Jim on that one. Commissioner, sorry, but as the case presented before us as far as zoning goes, I think it's a good project from that aspect of it, and I support it that way. But it does give me a little bit concerned also. This corridor is just getting very congested, and we're already looking at having to revise speed limits, et cetera. So hopefully that's enough, but you know, thinking forward, there's going to be a limit.
Commissioner Babbitt?
Since we're only talking about zoning, I'm going to echo my two fellow commissioners here and just discuss, really, we need to look at the transportation corridor along that path in the future. And I think maybe do a study session around that transportation corridor and help us as a commission understand its current capacities, future plans, and that way when we go into things like this in the future, we can fully understand with our eyes open what we can support there, because reducing the speed limit is a Band-Aid on a situation, and I don't like to reduce the speed limit on that road. So I would like to see more longer-term solutions there and understanding what we can support and not, zoning-wise. But that would be my comment for the zoning section.
Like to address any of them?
So if I could echo back what I've heard, the concern is that there's danger that the traffic volume and the amount of car use that will occur in this area and how that intersects with the youth that are also attracted to this area based on the daycare and the school.
I think there's a number of those concerns, right? But it's also there may not be. I think it's just maybe a study session with the commission of what the traffic analysis is so that we fully understand that volume, because we may think there's an issue and there may not be. So maybe a full understanding of that area and what we can support as a city to develop that area, to hit the different development thresholds of the roads, will better help us understand moving forward.
Understood. I'll just want to clarify one thing that was part of this application, and then I'll yield to Rudy Lopez here. So you mentioned thresholds for the corridor, and there's also thresholds for our applicants based on the scale of their developments. So this scale of development, while it's high density, isn't actually attracting a lot of units, right? 27 units. Didn't actually trip the threshold of a full traffic impact analysis. It was a lesser threshold of a traffic impact study by our engineers. So the amount of trips that it generates doesn't go over that 100 trips per peak hour that would cause additional layers of analysis to be at least on the backs of the applicants. Now, that doesn't mean that the city itself can't do more analysis for that corridor.
And
But
I think that's
just
the
wanted to
ask,
kind of
Ryan, is
clarify
we
that.
do a little more analysis and look at it and come back and have a study session, because a few months ago we approved another zoning and another DRP that I don't think triggered a traffic impact analysis. So all these little ones do add up. So just for us to know the full impacts and to understand what leverage we have there, because we do have leverage, but what is that gap of leverage we have?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I just want to come in and interject and just you guys hit the nail on the head. We've talked about this, about doing some type of study session in terms of understanding how the city deals with a long-range transportation planning of the city. One's already in place. All the uses and designations that's accounted within our general plan that's already built into there has accounted for the road capacity within the Porter Road corridor. It accounts for the land uses, the recent rezonings, the recent development approvals that's been done recently, and that's constantly updated almost on a 5-year basis. The last update we had was probably around 2016. We're going to be up for another update to that line, to that transportation plan fairly soon. But it'll be nice to go ahead and get that going. We kind of were slowed down due to the pandemic, but I want to get that going. We've developed a quick presentation for the commissioners, but again, with the pandemic, we had to slow things down with other priorities as well. So if anything, loud and clear, we'll follow up with a study session, either informally or during this type of setting at a later date to give you a better holistic approach to when it comes to transportation planning within the city of Maricopa.
So then if I'm hearing it correctly, just to circle back around and close the loop, this particular project won't necessarily give us the large impact that we're worried about because it's only 27 units, but we're wanting the staff to be able to present to us a bigger picture
Correct.
of a lot of the general areas so that we have a better handle on exactly what's going on down the line.
Well, that's part of it. My issue is just
Right.
an individual
Yeah.
to say, I would never want to stop this project. But there comes a point where I think we morally and professionally need to be accountable. That's all. Your answer's perfect for me.
Okay. And this particular one that we're looking at right now is just for the amendment. That's what. So with that being said, is there a motion?
I'll motion to approve.
All right, we've got a motion and a second to approve the minor general plan amendment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, so moved. All right, so the next one then is also a public hearing, zone change, ZON 20-010 John Terrace Apartments, a request by Les Parch on behalf of Crystal and Jen Ojon to rezone approximately 1.69 acres, a portion of Pinal County, parcel number 510-71-018A from existing general business CB2 to high-density residential RH located south of Honeycutt Road and east of Porter Road. Discussion and action. And I think it's the same presentation, correct?
Yeah, so the presentation that was presented also serves this, this particular request, and this request also does require a public hearing
Right.
opportunity.
Exactly. Do the commissioners want to be public first, and then we'll answer our question? Okay, so it is 7:49. We'll open it up for 2 minutes.
Your mic's not on.
Sorry, thank you. I'll reiterate. So we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing. And again, guys, this is for the zoning change only. This is not for the development review. So do you guys have any questions? just put it out there instead of going each one. Michael,
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Yoko. We got a motion and a second. Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
You so passed. All right, 4.5, Major Development Review Permit, DRP 20-07, Ojon Terrace Apartments, a request by Les Parch on behalf of Crystal and Kent Ojon to seek review and approval of proposed high-density residential development on approximately 1.69 acres, a portion of Pinal County parcel number 510-71-018A on vacant land located south of Honeycutt Road and east of Porter Road. Discussion and action. I think we're the same presentation, correct?
Same presentation, just clarify that this review does stop with the Planning and Zoning Commission, but does pend the approval of the general plan amendment and the rezone with City Council. And this will then be your decision on the elevations, the site plan approval, landscaping, and all those sort of details as to how the site comes together.
Okay, so we'll do the same pattern this wide. Michael, any questions, comments?
No.
I have a couple questions.
Deb? Okay.
So since we're talking about the DRP, you had mentioned, Ryan, that there was some more stonework that was going to go in on the front. Can we get some clarification of what that might look like? And
Yes. I apologize for the late move on this elevation change, but essentially, we could add a condition, if it suits the commission's interest, to clarify what exactly this elevation change would be. So the elevation facade change would be to switch out some of the stonework for, switch out some of the corrugated metal, which you see in the two-story massing pieces above the doors. So where that is labeled corrugated metal. And so we would switch that corrugated metal with the stonework. And then on the one-story piece could be some other metal facade. And I would, if that requires additional clarification, I could ask the applicant to come up if do you need more clarification for it?
We're going to just show the video. The video kind of illustrates the facade locations of where the stones will be placed at.
Okay.
So, you know, just guide them over where that stone.
I just don't know if I get a chance to pause it. If those in the back could man the pause button, I'll let you know when we should pause. Okay, let's pause here. Oh, I guess that was not pause. Okay, bring up my my PowerPoint again. We'll use that the best we can. Okay, we also have this slide, which is a screen capture from that video. So where you see the stonework being illustrated or rendered in this video is exactly where the applicant has shown an interest in changing the facades. So working with staff, this has kind of been, let's keep the chains moving. We want to be flexible. We don't want to hold up development. We don't want to be a thorn. We want to be able to apply the zoning code, very much honor the public review process, give you a solid package and clear understanding of what you're approving so that everybody has fairness on all sides. So with that said, a little bit late in the game change for the facade, trying to meet staff's expectations so that we bring to you something that we can wholeheartedly back with approval and something that also helps the applicant be proud of what they're going to build. So with that in mind, the previous slide shows basically a swap out of what would occur. where there is currently stonework in the one-story massing would become stonework on the two-story massing. And where there's corrugated metal in the two-story massing would become corrugated metal in the one-story massing. So we're just getting more stone facade into the mix so that it becomes more prominent feature of the facade mix. And it was something that staff had been articulating as we'd like to see more variety of facade materials to help bring more facade interest and softer facade interest in the fact that this is residential development. So it was that's how they helped.
But this current facade design does meet our design guidelines.
Currently, the city does not have very clear design guidelines for multifamily, to be quite frank. What we are leaning on is trying to have clear communication up front and apply the more broad language that's found in the zoning code, but then just try to be clear with the applicants early on in the application process so that staff can best guide them without a clear guideline documentation.
Okay.
But that is in the work plans to develop multifamily and commercial facade design guidelines so that we won't have this pressure early on in the application to clarify what staff is looking for without something that's been backed by the commission and council and all that. So,
thank you. I also have a few other questions. I did notice the building and the way it sits, and the windows. The way it's oriented. There's no windows on the east-west orientations. How would the building get natural light? Are there avenues for natural lighting into the building?
So the east-west lack of windows is an intentional design element. They did incorporate some small windows on the east elevations in another slide that was cut out of this presentation. But in any regard, with that in mind, yes, the east-west windows are where you get your most solar gain. And since they are kind of going for a LEED certification or something in that category, something with an environmentally conscious design, that excess solar gain that you would get from those west-facing windows especially are the ones that will up the electric bills. And it's my understanding that the applicants are looking to envelop the electric cost as part of the rental cost. So then by investing in that energy efficiency, they get to reap the rewards for that long term.
Okay. And there was mention of the building system that they were using to build this, but I don't believe I caught the building system's name.
If you want to come up and provide clarification, this goes to a detail that's beyond the conceptual design framework of the zoning code, but.
Thank you. The building system you will find at www.gpsi-usa.com. It was invented in Southern California 47 years ago. It has been fabricated in California until 2012, whereby then the fabrication of the building system was taken over by a previous licensee in Mexico City who has been producing the building system for 27 years. I am now the proud owner of this system as of last November. Having worked with it for 18 years in multiple countries, I found it essential to go ahead and take the system, not let it become passé and become a dinosaur, but instead to take it through the most stringent testing with USC in Los Angeles, California for the Earthquake-Resistant Tsunami Test Center, as well as in Klamath Falls, Oregon, to continue to work with the structural plaster rendering that coats both sides of the system being the exterior walls, intermediate floors, and the roof. So it is a monolithic system. There is no wood frame required. So the system does not participate in any of the deforestation, clear cutting. It really is 100% now recycled. We're very proud of having accomplished this 2 years ago.
Okay, thank you. I'm good.
Comments, questions? No? I just had a couple myself. So I'm a little concerned with the egress ingress, that road, if you can pull that back up. Yeah. Going to ultimately be responsible for this driveway, so to speak, down the line? I mean, I know that they're going to be obviously given an easement for it, but where's the responsibility level lie?
So that is a private property arrangement between the surrounding land owner who's provided the easement to this newly created lot and the lot owner of the Ojans. Given that it's a property owner association that did not require a formal subdivision review, I, as a staff member, don't have overview of that. It was never required as a submittal item, but I can ask the applicants to speak to that if they.
I guess the bigger question is to legal then, are we worried about that?
No, that's going to be the private property owner, so there's going to be the easement, that's going to be between them to determine who's going to be responsible. It's likely that it's going to be the responsibility of the apartment complex
Okay.
for maintenance of it.
All right, so that's not a concern that the city
Correct.
needs to worry about.
Correct.
And that would include the landscaping, because there is landscaping on here, so that would then be between the two of them.
Correct.
Which then brings me up to my next, one of my next questions, where under the landscaping notes, City of Maricopa, it mentions a homeowners association.
Or property owner association. It's a blanket statement
Okay.
out of our code that says that the responsibility for maintaining dead landscaping is their responsibility, and then provides notice that when the city notifies them that they have a 3-month time frame to remedy any code violations, so that they bring up the landscaping to the approved landscaping plan.
Now, is
standard.
that 3-month time span something that we're asking them to agree to, or is that something that's within our code?
It's within our code.
Okay. And then the only other question would then be, again, for probably legal, on the access urgency. How do we ensure that stays always there? That's my concern, because there is only one way in right now, and the other egress is actually for emergency. How do we ensure that easement stays there if it's going to be an agreement between the two parties?
So with regards to any sort of future site improvements, this will be a requirement as listed in our conditions of approval that they have to meet the fire code requirements as illustrated in these plans. So the future improvements within Lot 1, which would be the surrounding context, would have to continue to meet the fire code requirements and any future reviews.
Okay, so if you guys get another request submittal from anything surrounding that, then from that property owner, then these two easements would need to still be there and valid, correct?
Yes, and this provides some flexibility because, with regards to Seven Ranches and the street plan that will ultimately be built out surrounding this site, there very well could be access to a future Magnolia Road to the north along the northern boundary of the surrounding commercial site. So we will see what the future holds, and we will be flexible, but yet still meet fire code requirements as that development comes to fruition.
That just opened up another question in my mind then. If Magnolia Road, for example, becomes a viable option for that, would they need to come back to be able to modify the property to be able to access that road then?
I believe that that modification would be administrative at that point, but as far as coming back to the city and working with us, it would all have to meet the surrounding context. Everything that, every development that occurs within the city is going to have to come to staff for either a minor development review permit or a major development review permit.
That's fine.
And
just
so
as
that's
long
gonna,
as-
yeah.
And that's fine, as long as they know that if there's another access point created, that it has to be cleared and okayed,
Right.
even if it's an administrative process.
This is standard protocol in the city of Maricopa. You want to do development, you come in, you do a pre-application conference with staff, and we're going to outline everything that you should be aware of early on.
Okay, that's all I had. With that being said, unless there's anything else, I'll entertain a
I have one question.
motion. Okay?
Is it possible that we could request a road maintenance agreement between them? That something like that be in place? So it's not something that we actually review, but it's just an agreement between the people that are using the land, the road? Does that make sense?
I think that's kind of what I was asking already there. It's a private agreement between the two parties, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Because it's a standard, it's not something that we just need to make sure something is in place so that, like, when you were talking about the zero easement, there's no disagreement. You're responsible for this and this is how it's done.
If I could provide a little bit of clarity, if this were truly built to a standard of a private road, we would have certain pavement thicknesses and subbase and all these engineering features that ensure that it's built to a specific standard. With this, it would be lesser of a standard because it's a drive aisle and not a street. So it's never planned for the city to potentially take it over as a public asset, or to have a contingency plan to do that. So with regards to trying to balance the private interests versus the public interest, the city just hasn't gotten that involved in regulating or ensuring that private parties play well with regards to driveways or parking lots or any other sort of conditions. Obviously, there's certain conditions that meet health hazards or road hazards or driver hazards. Then the city would get involved with a code violation. But generally, we just kind of hands off and let private agreements do their thing
Okay.
in this arena.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I'm just going to reiterate everything. I think it's a great project. It's unique. It's something that's going to be great. I wish we could bring more businesses in like you're asking us for, but we can't wave that magic wand, but we can thank the beautiful people for being able to bring these kind of projects into us. So with that being said, is there a motion to approve or deny?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we do have a motion and a second. Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So move.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Congratulations, I'm kind of excited for it. I do have one question, though. What type of time frame are you looking between phase 1 and phase 2?
0.
So you're going to build it all at once?
If I might speak.
Do you want to, please, for the benefit of those that watching at home?
I was being lazy, sorry. Thank you so much on behalf of Kent and Crystal. I only met them 5 weeks ago when I got the call, and without becoming overly religious in my comment, I just think that there are many of us that are called to serve in certain capacities that we've spent, for myself, 45 years in construction since I was 14. And to be called upon to pull a project out of what was something kind of slipping away from them, and this is a very big night for them. Thank you. They're very special people. They don't see this as just building some apartment buildings. They see it as really becoming integrated within their community and participating in what I've been told is the fastest growing city in the United States. And with everything going on in our crazy world, folks, we need progress. We need good results like Maricopa is bringing to the people here. Getting back to your question, Ms. Huggins. You'll forgive me, I don't address many councils or people. I sit with ambassadors in other countries, but they say first name base, so forgive me for my impropriety of being formal. We, as builders, roll our trades, and the Ojans have worked very hard to timeline the funding they've put in place for their project to ensure that once we break ground on the grading and underground utilities portion, that we will roll into the construction of the first building, which on your plans is noted as Building B. And we chose Building B instead of Building A first because we don't want to be driving construction trucks and noise in front of Building A occupants. So we're going to start with Building B and cite our local tradespeople and everybody get acclimated as a team and build the 5 units first, come back to Building A, and then move on to C and D. So it is a continuously timeline planned project from our mouth to God's ears.
Well, thank you. Then I guess it doesn't have to be worried about the extension of the process, does it? All right, thank you. All right, guys. 4.6, public hearing. Get another public hearing. Major General Plan Amendment, GPA 20-04, Rev et Porter, a request by iPlan Consulting on behalf of Eldorado Holdings, LLC, to amend the general plan future land use map of approximately 25 acres from existing public institutional P to high-density residential HRD and commercial C, generally located southeast corner of Porter and Bolin Road. Discussion and action.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, as mentioned, this request is by iPlan Consultants on behalf of Eldorado Properties 27 LLC. Subject site is approximately 25 acres, which is a minor general plan amendment request from existing public institutional and for a proposed designation of 21 acres approximate of high-density residential and 4.6 acres of commercial property. Keep in mind, myself and Peter have tag-teamed this project, so you'll be seeing a general plan amendment request presentation and also the rezoning application request in the same presentation. I'll take care of the general plan application, and Peter will come up and discuss the presentation for the rezoning. Just to give you an idea in terms of the entitlement process, as previously mentioned on other projects, we're basically on a somewhat 3-step process in terms of entitlement. It becomes, first, make sure that the general plan is adhered to. With the current designation, this does require a minor general plan amendment to the existing general plan, land use plan, and then followed by the general plan amendment request with approval, then goes into the rezoning, rezoning the property applicably to the general plan, land use plan of the city. Site information, again, is 25 acres. It is currently vacant. Existing general plan land use is a public institutional. The existing zoning of CI1, which is a light industrial, light industrial zoning came back from the city's heydays of growth in the 2004, 2007 era of designating this as some type of employment designation per the city's general plan back in 2005. The proposed the proposed land use change of public institution and high-density residential to a proposed commercial designation, high density. Site location is the southeast corner of Porter Road and Bolin Road. So to just give you guys some context, more recently, right across the street on the west side is the Banner Medical Center. To the north is Glenwild Subdivision. And to the somewhat southwest portion is the Wells Walmart Center, and then our recently approved, under construction Oasis at the Wells, also multifamily development. This gives you an indication of the current general plan map with the subject site showing the changes of the proposed land use change of having a high density component and a commercial designation on the corner. Again, existing land use is public institutional, with designation from 2005 and a 2015 voter-approved general plan. That same land use pattern that we've seen existing hasn't been changed. That's something that I want to just touch base on, is that we are definitely in the stage that we have to maybe revisit our overall land use plan of the general plan in terms of a 20, 30-year mark to really understand what type of strategies we want to envision for the city. The current 2005 land use plan is very suburban growth, suburban sprawl type of model. And if you recall the strategies and discussions and the multiple public type of steering and stakeholder committees we've had, the discussion of find ways to reduce the amount of suburban growth, but find ways for compact type development. Our land use change pattern has to change in the future so we have a better type of transportation corridor. So something just planting the seed for future projects and future items to discuss as a city. The proposal is a high-density residential for the multifamily development, which is currently in an application review stage. We're not seeing the actual concept plan development review permit at this stage, but at this point, just seeing the proposed land use changes of general plan, the proposed rezoning requests. But they have at least give us some indication of what the products will include is for multifamily development. Similar like bungalows on Bolin, it's a single-family type product, but with the concept of multifamily attached and detached housing incorporated into it. 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. The commercial component, which is great to see that we still at least have a component of commercial incorporated with the multifamily development. The districts tend to provide areas for locally oriented retail and service areas uses that serve the surrounding residence trade area within a half-mile to 1-mile radius. The analysis by staff per the general plan and for the in terms of the goals and objectives, our consideration when it comes to this is that one of the things in our general plans, we want to minimize conflict between land uses. So the high density development and commercial land uses abuts and is sited on the corner of 2 major roadway arterials, which minimizes conflict to adjacent residential. To the north, the impacts to the surrounding areas should be minimal with the existing built infrastructure that's on Porter Road and Bolin Road at capacity to accommodate the proposed land use. To assure the development of diverse housing stock in both dwelling type and density, one thing we've done recently with our housing plan and housing needs assessment is that we have identified that the current housing stock of the city of a 21,000 plus dwelling units, we are lacking that diversity of multifamily or this type of other options of housing availability. We did identify that we are at least in need, we're a shortage of about 5,000, a good 25% of having a type of multifamily housing stock in the city. So we are seeing some now good projects come in light of the housing plan, housing needs assessment in the past 2 years with multifamily development. And this is just another multifamily type development coming in fruition in response to that housing plan and housing needs assessment that we identified. So the proposal also advances the city's housing needs assessment, goals and needs that identify this type of requests to accommodate the city's growing workforce population and shortage in rental housing in Maricopa. The other goal is to create safe and functional pedestrian ways and bicycle routes as an alternative mode to travel through Maricopa through the development process. And for this single for the subject site itself, the development will adhere to the required pedestrian connectivity standards set forth in the city's zoning code when it comes to that development review permit at a later date. And then from there, I'm going to go ahead and pass the baton to Peter to go ahead and present the rezoning application, and then we're just going to switch, I believe. Let's just do the presentation, then we'll go to the public hearing. Yeah.
This would be the presentation. Formally announced.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, first, I apologize if some of this information seems kind of redundant, since a lot of it does go along with the general plan amendment as well, but the 2 items do need to be separate items on the agenda. So nevertheless, this is a request to rezone approximately 25 acres of land from light industrial to multiple unit residential and neighborhood commercial. 21 acres of those 25 will be going to multiple unit residential, and 4.6 acres of that will be going to the neighborhood commercial. Currently, the site sits vacant. The existing general plan lists as a public institutional, although that is being changed. And the existing zoning is light industrial CI1. This is the site location. It is the southeast corner of Bolin Road and Porter Road. and this is what the proposed zoning will look like. As you can see, the northwest corner of the lot will be zoned for commercial, and the remainder will be zoned for multiple unit residential. The existing zoning is a designation left over from our old county-based zoning code. The proposed multi-use residential designation will allow for the construction of a multifamily development that will be presented to the commission later on this year, and the applicant has already started the development review permit for that, so it should be coming soon. The proposed neighborhood commercial zoning will allow for the development of locally oriented retail in the future. That development review permit has not been filed for as of this time. An ad was placed in the Maricopa Monitor and the Casa Grande Dispatch notifying the public hearing. Notification letters were sent out to residents within 300 feet of the subject site, and a sign was posted on the property as well. Staff did receive one comment regarding concerns with traffic in the area, specifically Porter Road. Both the engineering division here at the city and the applicant addressed these concerns in the public participation plan. I do want it to be noted that traffic will be fully vetted through a traffic impact analysis at the time of the development review permit submittal, and that is individually for the multifamily component and the commercial component. Staff finds that the amendment is consistent with the general plan. This rezone will allow for the developer to continue its development of a multifamily development, and the zone change will not impact health, safety, or the general welfare of the area. Staff recommends the approval of ZON 20-02 and GPA 20-04. And just as a reminder, each case will require an independent motion by the commission.
What did you just say? I didn't hear after this as a reminder.
Each item will require independent action by the commission. I'm sorry.
It's getting softer and softer and softer.
Sorry.
I know. I didn't hear it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing for 4.6, the minor general plan amendment, and it is actually 8:24. We'll let you go back over and watch YouTube land. Or you have it over there?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, we did receive just one comment via YouTube from Barb Hostler. It's time to stop this nonsense. We have taken all the prime commercial land and prime locations for multi-use.
Thank you. All right, so public hearing will now be closed, and we will do the same process. Do we want to address both at one time and kind of get that over with, or how do you want to do that?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, so we do have, the applicant is actually somewhere. It's actually attending via conference line. If there's any questions for iPlan Consulting or the property owner, they're here to answer any questions regarding the project. Staff is here to also answer any questions on the project proposal as well. So we can hear questions on the request, and then we'll just have action on the GPA and then the rezoning.
Okay, so let's just do one at a time then. So we're going to go ahead and do the minor general plan amendment first. And I'll do the same way. Commissioner Sharp, we'll go to you first.
I have no comments. Sorry, I was on mute.
You're fine. All right, start this side. Commissioner Hopkins.
No questions.
Commissioner Yocum? Bab?
Mic working. Rudy, I would like to see before, just as a note, before the DRP comes through, that traffic impact study that we talked about.
Right.
But related to this item, the minor general plan, I don't have any questions.
Commissioner Frank?
Yep, similar comment, that we've got to start looking at all these traffic impacts more holistically. I mean, we just approved another one that was, this one's 10 times larger, you know, and so scale up our concern, same.
Commissioner Reed?
Same comment.
I'm going to echo the same sentiments. We do definitely need to get our hands wrapped around traffic analysis a little bit better on this. I don't necessarily have anything for, sorry, I got to find out what I circled. I don't have anything for this other than the fact that I'm really, again, and I'm going to echo the same thing I've said in the past, I'm a little frustrated with just a 300 feet. This one is a good indication of exactly what I was talking about. If you guys look at the map, it only hit one street within the Glen Wild division. So I think that somehow or another, Rudy, I think we need to look at seriously increasing that, no matter how it gets to be done. If we need to go to council, however we do that, I think we need to extend that out, especially in projects this big. The other thing that I wanted to make mention, that's right, was in your surrounding zoning use chart, we're mentioning to the north a master plan community. We need to take that out. That is not a master plan community. So we need to make sure that we do that.
Yeah. And Madam Chair, Commissioners, that this is the city's general plan map, land use map. So it's just land use terminology that was done in 2005, and it's as I mentioned earlier, it's the same land use map that we've had for the past 15 years that designated the Glen Wild subdivision as a notion of a master plan community. It's not hard zoning. This illustrates simply just a land use generalized designation. So
Right.
and when we go that route of updating our land use designation terminologies and descriptions, I think that'll be the time to look at the idea of what is a master plan community.
As more and more to our YouTube land's point, with all of these things coming in, I think we need to look at trying to do that sooner than later, because there's going to become a master plan community that's going to want to come in, and we're going to need to be able to have it already identified before that happens. Sure. So if we can, maybe a text amendment, I'm not sure how we do that, but I think we need to look at doing that relatively quickly or later. All right, any other comments? If not, I'll...
I did have one more. Is the 300 feet in zoning code, is that just a simple text amendment we can initiate at our request?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Bapp, that is correct. As you've seen, we've done this in the past. We can initiate text amendments. The P&Z Commission can more likely request an initiate of a text amendment for 300 feet radius. That is in our zoning code. Somewhat standard and been standard for the past 15 years. Just keep in mind, we are doing a zoning touch-up project that Ryan Wozniak, our senior planner, is leading up the charge with that zoning touch-ups, and we can simply include that as part of the laundry list of other changes that we've witnessed over the past 5 years. We try and do everything all at once, but that's something we can include as part of that one.
When's the zoning touch-up coming?
I was just going to say that. When is that?
Yeah,
coming?
we kind of initiated this early in the year. We're still getting all the laundry list together and getting our first draft ready. I will say next 60 days, as there are other things we have to work on as well. But we definitely want to, we've loud and clear on the 300-foot radius map that'll be included as part of those discussions.
Because this has been one of my pet peeves for a very long time, as you know. So, I mean, if we need to put it on the next agenda, I'd like to see it on.
Yeah, I think we should put it on the next agenda.
Okay.
We got to do something, because this is, I mean, yeah.
I agree. Let's put it on the next agenda.
All right. Okay, is there a motion for the minor general plan amendment, one way or the other? Second?
Second.
Okay, we do have a motion and a second. Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. All right, let's go ahead and open the public hearing for the zoning change, ZON 20-02, Revit Parker. And it is officially 8:32.
Madam Chair, if you could please read the agenda item itself. Can you read the entire agenda item?
Doggone it, I was hoping to get out of that one. Okay, 4.7, public hearing, zone change, ZON 20-02, Revit Porter, request by iPlan Consulting to rezone approximately 21.21 acres from existing light industrial CI-1 to multi-unit residential RM and approximately 4.6 acres from existing light industrial CI-1 to neighborhood commercial NC, generally located on the southeast corner of Porter and Bolin Road. Discussion and action. So I guess I got to restart the clock at 8:33.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, we did get a comment again from Barb Hostler. Two comments. I say leave the zoning until these studies are done. This is anyone's times to comment, you guys.
What was the last one?
This is just more of a heads up to everyone. This is anyone's time to comment, you guys. So just announcing this time to comment.
Oh, she's just telling
She's
everybody.
encouraging other people to comment that's viewing the YouTube. That's all.
After the public hearing is closed, you guys can discuss it. So if you're going to answer a question that they posed or anything like that.
Like when we were looking at.
All right, it is 8:35, so that means that we are going to go ahead and close the public hearing for that as well. All right, we've had our presentations. Any comments? Mr. Babb.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a question. In the 20-02, it says that we are going to be taking the existing light industrial to neighborhood commercial. What is the difference between neighborhood commercial and commercial? I know there was a brief definition on the slide that said that would serve as the area from half mile to a mile radius. Can you give some more clarity on what kind of businesses and what that means?
Sure. It would just serve smaller businesses, more community-based businesses. So think less big box type retailers. Definitely businesses under 10,000 square feet. It fits smaller suites. So yeah, more
Like
your mom and
smaller
pop type
Smaller
places.
strip stores?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like what's on Honeycutt then, if that's correct? What's on
Exactly.
Honeycutt.
Okay, so like that Honeycutt complex?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Giving it a more neighborhood feel instead of a big box shopping center. All right, Commissioner Sharp, did you have any questions or comments?
No, not at this time.
Anybody else? Commissioner Yocum, go ahead.
Just a comment. I don't think it's just this commission that is concerned about the traffic issue that continues to pop up again and again and again. There were 2 letters written to you, Peter. One was from Paula Smith, and the gist of it was, how many more cars will be traveling on Boland? It's difficult to get in and out of my property from time to time. And then there was another from Eduardo Rodales, and he says that...
I'm sorry, Commissioner. Sorry to interrupt. Eduardo is actually our engineering plans examiner.
Okay.
So that is our response to the
Well, his comment also was that we use that intersection every day to drop off, pick up kids from Legacy, increasing the number of trips through intersections and so forth. And both of these are on target for traffic and the continuing concern with traffic. I just wanted to make that point. I think we've got to address that issue more thoroughly than we do.
Yeah, I think we'll be able to see that in our traffic analysis update that we're going to get that. Awesome. Any other comments? I will take a motion to entertain.
Before we...
So moved.
Sorry.
Yocum, is there a second?
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, real quick, just before we go into that action, the applicant would like to go ahead and just give a quick speaking on that. You'd just like to respond to that comment, if that's okay?
Sure.
Brad, can you hear us?
Thank you, Rudy. Yes, thank you, Rudy. Chair Huggins, Commissioners. My name's Brad Hinton. I'm with Eldorado Holdings. I definitely hear what you're saying with the traffic concerns and the residences. As I, at one time, was a resident of Glenwild, and my children went to Legacy School, so I can definitely vouch. I would tell you that we have already done a detailed traffic impact analysis, which has already been submitted. Something to point out with the existing zoning is the CI1 light industrial also encompasses the old commercial zoning from the county, and it is a much higher intensive use from a traffic perspective. So the use that we're proposing today, both the neighborhood commercial as well as the multifamily, is a less intensity use from a overall traffic count perspective, which the traffic analysis will show. So not that I needed to speak, but when hearing the concerns from both the commissioners as well as the public, I just thought it would be good to point that out and to kind of tee up our next agenda item when we come before you for the design review item. So with that, I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir, but I think just for clarification purposes, we're not just talking about your development. We're talking about the overall area. We wanted to see the complete traffic analysis for everything, not just yours. So we're not just picking on you.
Good point.
Yeah, Chair, understood. And this particular part of town being up close to Walmart in what actually was a master plan zoning with Glenwild, this commercial development as well as the Walmart Power Center. I think it's a different part of town than the Seven Ranches area, but I definitely appreciate that comment and understand it.
Because I think this is number 3, right in the same area for tonight. Yeah, so I mean, that's 3 different proposals in one area of different traffic patterns that we're concerned about, plus what we did at the last meeting. So we're just wanting to make sure that we can get our hands wrapped around a good study and get a good understanding of it.
I'd like to motion again that we approve ZON 20-02.
Okay, there's a second?
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, so moved. All right, 4.8, text amendment, a request by the City of Maricopa to initiate and proceed with a minor text amendment to the City of Maricopa zoning code, amending City Code Section 18-115-12J, yard, carport, or garage sale signs, discussion and action.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Abel, can I get the presentation? I think it's item 4.8. There.
Poor Michael, he's the only one left. Hi, Michael. Of course, it's a stock picture of you, but you're looking good.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, City's here to, staff is here to present a request to the P&Z Commission to initiate a text amendment to the current zoning code as it relates to carport and garage sale signs within the city sign regulation section of the code. Some background to this is that, the sign code originally started when the city incorporated in 2004, and then in 2006, that's where the city really developed a lot of the standard regulations such as parking, signage, lighting, etc. Sign code was adopted in 2006. A major amendment was done in 2009 in response to the recession at the time to give we were kind of relaxed. It gave opportunities for business at the time. And since then, the code has somewhat stayed static. Even with the 2015 zoning code update, the sign code really didn't change since 2009. I'm sorry, there's a little typo on that fourth bullet point. But the recent court case, and if you haven't heard in terms of First Amendments and freedom of speech, the Town of Gilbert versus Reed, really put a lot of cities in somewhat of violation in terms of freedom of speech, in terms of cities regulating content. Right now, our code is very content-based, where we base signage based on what it's actually depicting in a way. We as a city have to find ways to transition that into a content neutrality in a way where it's just specific on wall sign, monument sign, temporary sign, and not specific as gas station sign or signage for fast food restaurants or signage for, coming soon signs, things like that. It's very content-based itself. So in addition, as part of it, so we had to start transitioning where we do have the notion in our sign code is that there's no off-site signs allowed in the city of Maricopa. The only type of off-site signage in terms of billboards in a way, shape, or form is the city's city kiosk program, which is controlled aesthetically and somewhat controlled by the city in terms of information for speech. But we had to find ways to get it to more transition of a content neutrality in a way. And I think our first stab at this is getting someone looking into yard carport signs that's been proliferating our roadways for the past decade or so. One of the goals of the city is beautification of 347, and this is one of the things that we can start transitioning into, looking at amending the code to find ways to get it more neutral, where there's not the allowance of all these yard sale signs being posted on illegal areas such as utility posts, street signs, and basically sometimes in the site visibility triangle. But in lieu of this, in terms of finding more restrictions, we are going to find ways to give homeowners, residents, find ways to still they can advertise garage sales or yard carport signs within the communities through an app. an online app that you can register your sales events that you'll have, and that type of sales event will give residents the opportunity to just look up where that garage sale event is happening at your residence, in lieu of somewhat being more restrictive in terms of off-site signage such as garage sales. So this is what we see on a constant weekly basis. Every Monday, our code enforcement officers for the past decade has picked up. We see them plastered on our traffic signs, our utility poles, even sometimes right on top of our community kiosk signs that's in Maricopa. But on a constant basis every morning, we just don't get residents picking up their garage sale signs, and it becomes a pollution to the area itself. This just gives you an example of what is done on a constant basis for code enforcement to pick up these yard sale signs out there. The existing code and proposed changes as simple as this, is that, we'll still have the general language that residents can still have type of signage within their residential area, or at least on the property, but the notion has to be removed where off-site signage has to be somewhat restricted. In lieu of this, like I mentioned, we want to go some type of online version of allowing residents to still advertise their garage sale sign via an app, and that's accessible, that can easily give information of where that advertising of that event's going to be held at. We just don't want to see, we want to find ways to declutter our roadways and find ways to beautify our roadways, and not to have this type of signage out there illegally. The text amendment schedule, we want to run this fairly quickly. So we're initiating the text amendment, as of today. We are going to submit newspaper notice of the information. Being that this is minor, just a small section of the code, legally we have to publish this in the local newspaper. What's not included here, I typically do a 15-day stakeholder review that will be published on the city's website to receive any comments or responses, other requested change. And then we expect to come back to the P&Z Commission on the second meeting in August, fourth Monday in August 24th, followed by City Council action on September 15th. Pretty aggressive, but something that we're trying to find ways to beautify the city. There's a lot more beautification projects coming our way, such as I mentioned, as Main Street and the things that's happening over there by the Maricopa Station area, but you'll start to see a little bit more beautification projects on John Wayne Parkway now that the overpass project is completed. We're hopeful to share that with you fairly soon, but I think you guys will be fairly impressed in terms of what's going to be happening on John Wayne Parkway in the near future. These are just one of those elements that leadership has identified as those elements. Madam Chair, Commissioners, at this time, staff recommends the Commission to initiate the minor text amendment request to the City of Maricopa zoning code, amending the city code section, yard, carport, and garage sale signs, for proceeding with the requirements set forth of the city zoning code for procedures of amending the zoning code itself. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions, comments, or concerns.
Okay, let me start out in Zoom land. Mr. Sharp.
No question.
Hopkins.
No questions.
Yocum.
No questions.
Tab.
Speak a little bit loud.
I've got you loud and clear.
So you had mentioned that, there we go, Rudy, that this was sparked by a by a court case in the city of Gilbert. Is the court case impacting specifically yard sale signs, or is this just a target for beautification that we're looking at?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Bapp, both. I think this time we do want to focus on the kind of like the low-hanging fruit at this time, but overall, with the zoning code touch-ups that you'll be seeing, we also want to, that's going to be the overall content of overhaul the sign code to be somewhat content neutral in nature. I think the yard carport signs in the city has somewhat gone to a tipping point in a way. It's just gone a little bit excessive over the past couple months, and it's something that leadership has identified that we can easily address now itself.
Do you see that the current code that you displayed on screen is not being followed by with the yard signs?
Yeah. Madam Chair, Commissioners, what I get from code enforcement is that's correct. We are constantly getting violators that are placing their yard sale signs in violation of the current code. And it's become where they don't pick them up, and it's constantly just polluting our streets out there. So, yes.
Then what would make us believe that changing the code for no signs changed that? Wouldn't an education campaign be a little better, where maybe our code enforcement does communications, work with, maybe educate the community, say, hey, to get better placement, this is where you should place them to get better traction to your yard sales. This is how you should place your signs. Maybe our staff should help the community understand, sign placement and how to use signs better, and then pick the signs up afterwards. Because I don't think changing code is going to stop it. I'm also personally against restricting this type of activity. Even if you give an app, not everyone's going to use an app. Not everyone wants to use an app. So I'm personally against this type of action by restricting it completely. Maybe there's an education campaign we can take on because it's my belief if it is restricted, it's not going to change either. People are still going to do it. Maybe we can work with the public and help them to better understand, hey, this is better for you and us. Together, we can move forward.
Sure. Madam Chair, Commissioner Bapp, and I think that's where we want to begin this now in response to the app that's being developed to provide that. I think that's obviously your perspective of it, but it's just eventually we're going to have to find ways to be content neutral in the sign code. And right now, having a specific content neutral that specifies yard sale signs and carports, it being insinuated as garage sale signs section, it is a content base itself. So again, low-hanging fruit, we're trying to achieve something easy to accomplish fairly easily, to be somewhat in compliance with the court case, to be more content neutral. And technically by code, it would look into not allowing any type of off-site signage away from a residence or property itself.
Okay. I would just encourage us to look at other cities as well that have already made changes to address this court case, because I would venture to guess if we move and we say we are going to eliminate all yard sale signs, we would have a pretty big public outcry. Since yard sale signs and yard sales are pretty common here in Maricopa, we are a transient town. We do have people moving in and out quite often, and especially with the economy the way it is today, that is a way that people do make income today. So we just need to be very cautious of that.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I think that's definitely will present comparables of other cities of what they're doing in response to the Town of Gilbert versus Reed court case in relations to that type of signage restriction. And we'll provide that comparable data as part of the presentation at the schedule P&Z Commission meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of restricting people with their signage too much either, but I also don't like all the litter after the fact. So a little bit of education as far as that, or getting somebody out to enforce it. Exactly how, I don't know yet. I do like the app though. I like using technology like that. It seems like it'd be a little low-cost solution that might help the situation. So I think it's all kind of steps in the right direction. Maybe the next stop is the political signs. Getting them to comply. Yeah.
Oh, I see state law. I see state law issues right there. Commissioner, yeah, right. Commissioner Irving. No, I don't really have anything other than to say that I agree with the non-restrictiveness. The problem is how do you enforce it anyways? So at the end of the day, even if we say no, they're still going to appear anyways. What I will like to address, kind of what you had stated though, is be careful on that, because anybody that's doing them for income is actually in violation of their own homeowners association, because they're doing home-based businesses when they shouldn't be anyways. So it will be interesting to see. I mean, this is obviously just a motion to move forward with it. This is not a motion to approve, so it will
Correct.
be interesting to see what the other stakeholders have to say. And based on all of this, because we are not saying yes or no that we agree with it, we're just saying yes or no to move forward with it. Mr. Yoakum's got one other, I guess, additional question.
Well, it's actually a comment. When I lived back in New Jersey, we had a community, Haddonfield, which was an upper-class community, but they passed a regulation where your signs could not go out before 6 o'clock in the morning for your garage sale. You could only put 4 signs out. They had to be collected by 5 o'clock that night.
Again, I'm just gonna,
I'm just saying, compared to what you've presented to us, it's very, very mild. They also had a program where they had police volunteers, which were empowered to go out and actually look at the signs, because the address would be on them, and they could find these folks. So when you have the restrictions, and that's just another community's viewpoint of what had to be done, I think what we're doing here is trying to do is relatively mild.
yeah, I would not want to be on that police force.
Honestly, it'll be interesting to see the comparable. We've done some initial comparables, and I will tell you off the bat, 50-50. Some cities have been still given opportunities, still being content neutral, while other cities have been straight out restrictive.
Right.
But we'll present that information as well.
So Rudy, I would just like to see options, right? Instead of a straightforward text amendment like you normally give us, is options.
Wait, Commissioner Irby's made a motion to move forward. Right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we do have a motion and a second. Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved, thank you. All right, report from commission and our staff. You should not have very much after this night.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, if anything, nothing much, but great job tonight. If anything, appreciate all your hard work and dedication as P&Z Commissioners. It has been a very busy time of year for some reason during this pandemic, but we are still moving things along in some shape or form. Businesses still operating virtually in some shape, but we are just as attractive towards the development community. So work is not stopped. Work is continuing, and there is more to come. We are seeing a constant basis. Update, we did hire a new senior planner. Unfortunately, he couldn't attend due to limitations of COVID, but we are staffing up in the planning department to get more assistance and help out there.
Real quick, is there anything for Kazi this week? You said you'd let us. This is his last week, right?
Yeah, Kazi, if I failed to mention, he has announced his retirement, and unfortunately, we want to do something special for him, but we are restrictive to having some type of get-together and things like that. And, there's some personal items that he couldn't attend as well, which I wish he could have attended as well tonight, but due to pandemic, we were somewhat restrictive on that. But yeah, if you see him in passing or if you want to email him, it's Kazi's last week as of this week. He'll be retiring by the end of this month.
Right, and I would like to echo the sentiments of, I think, the entire present and past commission, that he has been awesome, and we wish him nothing but the best, and, Godspeed to him.
Thank
Awesome.
you. Vince.
You're welcome. All right, if I'm reading this stuff correctly, it sounds like we're going to have 2 meetings again next month, guys. And Rudy's sitting there like, yeah.
Yes.
Poor Nick. You got to stay with it. So,
I believe for sure, obviously, the fourth Monday, I don't remember if it's the second Monday as well, but we'll give you guys, Peter will send you out meeting invites for attendance.
According to your text amendment, August 27th is the fourth Monday.
Yeah, but,
Oh.
but the second Monday in August, that's what, I don't think I have anything in the pipeline.
Oh, okay.
So, and we'll still have probably just one meeting in August, which I think it's that.
Okay,
But we'll send you information
all right.
if there is one in second Monday.
And Nick, yes, no? Okay, he's shaking his head no, guys. I'll take a motion to adjourn at
I'll motion to adjourn
9:01.
at 9:01.
It's been a long time since we've had one this long. All right, Commissioner Babbitt, is there a second?
Us old guys can only sit so long without making a.
Is that a second, Commissioner Irving? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you,
All right.
Michael.
Take care, everyone. See you guys.
Oh my gosh, I gotta go to the restroom.
Can you actually,
Not just old folks. Good job, Jim. I gotta go. Huh? What? Exactly. Oh, my phone's been blowing up. I'm on call and I've gotten like 6 calls. I gotta go make excuses as to why I didn't answer.